Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, show number 545. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you for joining us live once again for our weekly TV show. Interesting how this is before we get to the topic, the word podcast is now under question. This has never been a podcast. This has been a show. This has been a TV show, to be exact, because it's been on a TV channel. We've always done a live show. Now, prior to us having the TV channel, which was now, we're year 11, so we've had it for a very long time. But before it, and we were only doing simulcasts on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and so forth. We used a variety of other platforms. It used to be called a vlog at one point. It used to be a vcast, was another term that was used. And podcast was what we've always done with our audio. We've always done audio podcast show. Now with the incredible amount of podcasts that are out there, and most of them are turning into this visual representation, just like we do. We talking heads speaking with you on a live visual show. You can either audibly listen to it or visually watch it. And a lot of them are just talk dialogue in that whole process. There's a consideration that it's no longer really being referred to as a podcast. It used to be where you can find your local, your podcasts and so forth. Now they're turning into shows because you see so many podcasts now, so many amazing podcast shows that are out there. They're wanting to just refer to themselves as a show. And we've always been the hospitality marketing show on our TV channel. So we're going to keep with that as a namesake. It is a show. We do still do an audio separately podcast, which goes more into tools and techniques and things like this than our show here, where we talk about concepts and methodologies and strategies and so forth, and interviews and other guest hosts and so forth. But I thought very interesting how quickly things are evolving in time as to how the change and transition based on better and better technologies come up. CES was this week, so a lot to discuss with that. We're not going to do it on this show, but we will be on the next show talking about some of the things that we discovered that were applicable to the industry or things that might influence our industry for lots of different things. But today, as always, our topic, and I picked one for a particular short reason, it seems to be the mantra of what's going on right now as we go now into the fresh new 2026 conference season. And about mid-year this year, we're of course going to have High Tech and HSMAI's commercial conference and so forth. And there's a host of other shows or conferences that also are on the slate for this year, as always. We come up with a lot of service profiles. We're seeing now more about service and software and AI's integration and usage than we are about necessarily hardware things as much. We're looking at how better to use the technologies that we have with software-based systems and services. And because of that, we're getting into persistent verbology that I wouldn't say we should always be aware of. It's so easy to glaze over the words that are chosen and used. But I want to focus on two words in particular that you hear and will continue to hear persistently a lot this year as you go to conferences. Hopefully you get to go to conferences. And that is the words can versus does. It's the chasm that really makes a difference between the two words. When people say something can do something versus something it does. Now, if anybody's been to High Tech, and I hope you have, it's an amazing conference to go to. HSMA has paired itself with it, and that has vendors that are in there that are more about service particular to hospitality. A lot of software there. Very little hardware gets represented in the HSMAI side of things. They're usually server-side provided vendors that are most of them on display for that. But in High Tech, there's still this technology component, and of course, a tremendous amount of software components. Now, if anybody that's gone to High Tech, you know there are rows upon rows upon rows upon rows of vendors. And any good conference tries to group together similarities as to the concept of things so that when you're in a certain area of the conference floor, you're seeing vendors that are in the same genre of things that are being done. Yes, no. Also with the conferences, there's a matter of seniority. Who's gone to the conferences most or more gets a higher level of opportunity to represent themselves at the conference, whether it be at a certain row or certain entranceway or certain high traffic spot. And then, of course, there's those that pay more for more space. And you get these rows, and what's always famously is the 10,000 row. That's the newest lowest entry, only been here now person, no seniority credits, no nothing. As a matter of fact, most of them have probably scraped together most of their financial net value to afford, because it's not cheap to be at high tech, a booth. And they're given an 8-foot flat conference table, curtains are skirted, stretched, whatever. Sometimes there's not even pipe and drape behind it. Sometimes just a wall, because it is literally the last row to the right. And these are where all the bootstrap coming in just want to get to the foot traffic of everybody that's at the conference. And this has always been the most interesting place for me to go to at the conference, because most of them will not be back again. Most of them are trying to crack into a competitive group that is very very hard in the sense that they're competing with some pretty large players in their space, and they're going head to head with what service availabilities these large vendors are offering versus they offer. Now, the ones that do survive and that do grow and that do come back are the ones that have a niche that the others aren't doing, and it gives you a chance to use services that weren't made available before, which is what they're there for, is to make sure that they're presented and exposed to the audience of people most interested in what they're doing. In all of that, most of the time they don't have a lot of collateral. Okay, very little collateral. They might have a laptop if they're a little bit more robust. They might have a screen or display, but everything costs at a conference, whether you have a power strip or not, whether you have internet access or not. So a lot of these ones, especially the bootstrap ones, they're running localized content on their laptop on a flat table with some printed out Office Depot or Staples brochures off to the side that hopefully look nice enough that you want to pick up, and a business card euphoria of handing you contact information for further chances to show off what they're doing. In this space, as in all of the spaces at the conference, you get into the dialogue of what they're offering and what it can do. Can its capability, its possibility. There's features in it that exist, like it can do this, it can do that, it can integrate with this, it can generate this. It's a can. It can support this, it can do this. The can part is actually relatively easy, especially with the AI world we live in now. You can go to platforms like Lovable, N8N, and a host of them. I'm just naming some of the higher lighter ones that most people are familiar with. And you can build your own application process. And you can build your own ways that application process would work if you are methodical about what you are envisioning it to do. And it will prompt you through the process of what it needs to do it. And you go through this back and forth with the platform. You can actually build your own solution. And it creates a mock-up of a data set that it can use. It creates a ability to connect to a data set and so forth and so on. That's all good. But the key element of all of this the possibility of it all, is really related to what it's allowed to do. For instance, you see a lot of software, and there's platforms. On the podcast, we talk about a lot of platforms as to where we get our tools and function tools, which are always fun. I love playing with tools and so forth that people roll out with. Not because I wouldn't like to build my own, which I do, but it's also to see what other people build and see what they did better, and tear it apart and see if I can do something with it or use it in an adaptive way that I want to use it for. Any which way. These software tools might go over and say, hey, we can track your analytics. You're seeing a lot of AI offers now, a lot of vendors and so forth pumping out the fact that AI can do everything for you at 1/10 of the price. I see a lot of those ads now where it's like, you don't have to hire warm-bodied agencies. You give us the account and we'll set you up so that AI will do all of this. Well, we already seen some of this effect of this with PMax with Google, where you use here's Google, Interpon Gorilla, and you go there and you set up what you want it to do and you tell it to go fetch for revenue, whatever. And it does all the work for you of creating ads and creating visuals and creating videos and what have you. Problems with accuracy and consistency, we've had those discussions. But now there's agencies that are saying that we'll do this with you as well. We'll oversee it to make sure that it doesn't do that kind of stuff. And you just pay us the amount that we're charging for it to do this. Now, here's where it gets from can to does. It can do these things, but you have to connect it to allow it to do those things. So when it says we can build ad campaigns for you and so forth, you have to connect what they're offering to their platform, their platform to your Google account. So it has to connect to your Google Ads, and you have to give it all the permissions to function in that space, including your budget controls and budget influences and so forth. So it's going to be able to spend your money. Now, how is this different than just telling a vendor to do this? Well, in some ways, it can get out of hand because in the contract with the vendor, usually there's a disclaimer that they won't be held liable for any performance issues, lack of performance thereof. So you could burn a lot of money because it didn't do something that it said it was going to do. It said it can do it, but didn't do it. And everybody's kind of looking at it going, hey, that's the choice you made and it's on you and you lost the money. Too bad for you. They don't want that to happen. They like to hang around and keep paying the money. But the reality of it is you can't recoup that aspect of it. And what's happened is now you're allowing these autonomous systems to control more and more of what you're actually spending money on. So it can create ads for you. It can run your ad campaigns. It can give you analytics. But you have to surrender the ability for it to do so by connecting it. Now, on platforms that you have control over the accessibility function, that's not really a problem. You can simply say yes and give this permission, and they're going to help you with this, obviously, to tell you how they can connect their system to the accounts that they need to do the things that they say they're going to do for you. But where you begin to run into these very painful walls is when you're connected about doing things with other third-party systems that don't want you to do things with their systems, their data. Now, we've talked a lot about APIs and API keys and so forth. Keys are nothing more than just that. They're the permission to go and access data. And API configuration is always on the assignment of what data is available to the API key. What are you saying is available for an outside system to see and pull or push into back the system according to what the API is functioning for. Now, we've talked about how there's so many free APIs out there, so many things, and this is very true. There is an amazing amount of API availability for data collection out there. Gathering. There is very little, very, very little that allows you to connect backwards to it. Think of it as a revenue management tool or your property management system where you are allowing something to go in and modify your room rates or to modify your inventory. Okay. First off, that's a very scary. It's handing the keys to your Maserati, so to speak, to your teenager that just got his learner's permit. Not a risk factor to that as to what's going to happen. You think it's going to go well, but there's a high odds chance that it's not. So that's always dangerous territory for it. So the issue with allowing the accessibilities to certain things like that is really apprehensive, but it can do it. A lot of service systems out there talk about their ability, and you're going to see there's a lot of them out there right now. I'm thinking about Lighthouse and a couple others that are saying, hey, look, we have revenue management tools now that we can tell you how to adjust your rates according to all the data we have about your competitors and your market and everything else. And we can even do it for you. We can do it for you. That means you have to allow them to do it for you and connect it to your system. And that sounds really good and great and wonderful until you go to your PMS system and say, hey, I want these guys to have connections so that they can do this. And the PMS system goes, no, we don't allow that. Boom, brick wall. Now all of a sudden their can doesn't turn into a does. It sold you on what you wanted to get from them, sold you on using them. But the system that they need access to isn't allowing it. Now, that's a flat no. That's a hard no. But the systems also realize that this is a monetization opportunity as well. And they can charge you a configuration fee. I call it blood money. They call it a configuration fee. And that is that they will charge you tens of thousands of dollars to do nothing more than allow you to have the other system connect to their system for what they're allowing it to do. Not everything it may want to do, but allowing it to what it's going to do. And then in some circumstances, they continue the blood money, connection fee, as a service fee for it to be allowed to continue every month. So you're paying twice. You're paying the system that you're wanting to use. You're paying your system to allow them to connect to it. and you're paying your system to can allow them to continue to connect to it as you're paying them to use it. These fees don't really get talked to clearly from the vendor selling you this option. There are certain platforms that are more lenient about this. There's certain platforms that are more affordable about this. And then there's certain platforms that we mentioned before that just don't allow you to do this. A lot of times they'll say, we're working on our own internal solution to do exactly that. So we're not wanting outside services to connect to it. And in our world of compliance and data security, sometimes they're legitimately hiding behind the fact that they don't want that data access in their pantheon of what they're doing, because it creates a liability for them that it's allowed that a third party is being allowed access in. Now, that has a lot to do with what access they're given to as to which property, or how many properties, or what level of data they have access to being able to use. But even then, there is the constraint that a lawyer will chase the fact that a third party was given or granted connectivity to the data that was breached. Were they involved with it? But the fact that you allowed it to happen is culpability, and there's always the liability of paying so that it doesn't get larger in legal fees than paying it off, and again, blood money for it to go away. So a lot of service profile platforms, especially PMS platforms and places like that, just have a hard no. They don't allow that type of connectivity. So as we go into this year and we start talking about what's available to be done, what can be done, we get all of these amazing tools out there that can basically make it rain and sunshine and wash your car and feed your kids and comb your hair. But are they allowed? Can they actually do what they say they can? And that's where it gets into being very good about asking more specific questions. When they start talking about the platform, things like the platform can integrate with XYZ. Okay. First question would be, do you have an example of it connected to that platform? Anybody? If they come back, and this has happened, well, that's one of our clients, and that's, we can't share their connection to. That's fine. Who's the client? I like to know who it is that you're doing. What is that platform? What platform are you connecting to? And let them do this. Well, great. That's my platform. That's great. I can reach out to the platform and ask them how they configured it for you to know how they could configure it for me. You begin to get them to get very nervous very quickly, because a lot of times they'll throw out that they have it, but they won't be definitive as to who they have it with. Also, when they start talking about, well, we haven't connected to this yet, but we're in talks with them, or we've got a green light with them that they're willing to do. We just need a client to do with. Great. Don't want to be the first one, because that doesn't mean it works first. When you want to show me that you can connect, or then you use it as part of your negotiations, like, great, I'll give you a property to do this with, but because I'm the first one you're able to do this with, I ain't paying the fee that you're telling me I'm paying. You're going to let this happen, and you're going to cover the costs to prove to me that this is what does, and then I can open up other properties. But since I'm the guinea pig to this process, I ain't paying what you're asking for right now. And a lot of times the smaller companies will want to do that, because that gives them the reference that they need for other conversations. But you have to push. You have to ask the example. You have to ask the particulars. And if they do have the connectivity, great. You can blur out whoever it is. Blur out any aspect of the information that would lend itself as to whom it would be. But I want to see that it actually is connected. And then again, as I said, if it is of the platform that you're using, going to your account manager and saying, hey, look, XYZ vendor says that they have a platform that's integrated with one of their clients that's your system. Can you check that that is actually allowed? And if so, what is there any issues that they had, or is there any issues you've had with them? Or is this something that you are aware of and that you're willing to say that they can do with one of my properties in your portfolio? These are the active conversations. It's not a simple take it at face value conversation from them. Another aspect of it is when people also refer to, they can generate automated reports. There are so many platforms that can generate so many reports that do not require connectivity, but they also aren't allowed by the platform that the connectivity is needed. Let me explain. So say, for instance, Google Analytics or your Facebook account. There is hundreds of platforms that will consolidate a user interface that will show your paid analytics, that will show your organic analytics, everything GA4. plus your paid campaigns. It'll integrate with Google very easily. It'll integrate with Facebook, both paid and organic on Facebook. It'll integrate with other channels that you're doing business with, OTTs and audios and DOs and everybody else. And it'll aggregate it all into a single place for you to look at. That's great. Are the reports built for what you want them to show you, or are they just a show off that they can put it all together? See, the real element of data isn't so much that it can be put in front of you. I can overwhelm anybody with data. Anybody can. And it's not just spreadsheets, but now just data when you go to analytics, data when you go into paid campaigns, data from your PMS. You can overwhelmingly see data. That's not what the problem is. It's the fact that there's too much data, and to understand how the data correlates with each other, how well the data shows against the things that are relevant so that it's useful. Action items. One of the things with any clients I've ever had is I go through the reporting process when I first talk with them is that, can I get copies of all the reports that you're using and generating and developing, have used, whatever. And I go through and I look at them, and sometimes they're impressive as to what they do. Other ones, I see them and it's like, so what do you do with this data? Well, we all get it. So we understand what's going on. Great. Can you show me what it is in particular, which tab, which row, which column, which page, whatever, scroll down of what you look at that makes this report useful to have? Sometimes they have an answer like, well, I usually look at like a star report, page, tab 4, RevPAR. Yeah, okay, great. Other times they're like, well, sometimes I don't really look at it that often unless somebody has let me know that there's something to look at. The higher up the chain you go, that's usually the answer. It's like, look, I don't have time for every report. Well, then why are we making them, since they're being sent to you? But that conversation comes later. But the reports usually have a history that they've been done for so long this way that the purpose that they were created for, and it might be lost at this point or vague, but the usability of them has turned into a legacy. They're there in case we need it. If I ever get asked a question, I can go and take this report off the shelf metaphorically and open it up to the section that you're asking me about, and I can find a number for you. That's not as actionable as a report. And we talked about reports versus analytics. Reports are just that. Boom, here's data. Analytics are, here's your data, and this is what it means. Those reports, those analytics, the analysis of those things is really the value proposition of what you're looking for. So if my paid campaigns did this, and my social did this, and my website did this, and these other things happen, what does that all mean connected? What if a butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the world, where's the chaos on this side? That's the legitimacy that you're usually asking when you're looking at data is, what does this mean? Am I spending enough? Not enough? At whatever decision level you're at looking at this report for, is this actionable or not? Is really the key answer to looking at a report. And if you can't answer what the report is used for other than awareness, or because we've always done it, then you need to revamp what report would be better. Does it need all this data, or can you maybe level it up a little bit and the data gets condensed with correlations? Can we take all of these reports and put them in a way and combine them in a way with the newer technology that we have, the ability for AI to make comparative analysis through insights, which is nothing but scripted prompting that it repetitively goes through, and say, well, if all these things are being put together in data, tell me, okay, symptomatically, what am I looking at? Well, your paid is going down, or your conversions are going down in paid, even though your revenue is still maintained, which means your campaigns are losing their impact. Right now, it's not costing you more money, but you're not going to make any more money from it. As a matter of fact, at the way the trend's going, most likely you begin to make less and less money, still positive, but less than you made before. So you need to address what you need to do to rebolster that back up to the growth pattern that you had experienced before it being a decline. That's insightful. That's something you can look and have the data do. So you're not having to look and find it. It can instead come together. Now, I know we kind of tangent off of the can and the do, but this is relevant to the reports that these platforms say they can do versus what do they actually do. they'll put information in front of you, and you'll feel good that you have the information in front of you. There's little figurines to show me how many people this month versus how many little figurines show me how many people last month went to a certain page. That's great. What does it mean? Other than more people went to that page. Is that good? Is that a good page for them to go to? Or is that a bad page because it doesn't make any money for me, just traffic, and it's not doing anything? Then it's bad. Just because the traffic's up doesn't mean I'm making more money from it. It just means I have more traffic. Kind of happened to us with MetaSearch, where all of a sudden we had this massive amount of impressionable shares, but it wasn't producing anything. So we're all happy that we got a larger audience. Thing was, the larger audience wasn't doing anything for us. So we had to figure out why. That's the insightful aspect of data. And that's where, when you look at these platforms that say it can do this, it can generate automated reports, it can conglomerate all this data together for you to be all in one place that you can just tab through all the different things. This is my paid campaigns, this is my social, this is this. Great. But what do you do with that? Can it do something that does give me insight? It can create a report. Does it create analytical introspection? And that's where a lot of these fall down, because a lot of the technology is great about aggregation. API keys pull the data over, connect to the ad accounts, pulls the data over. We'll look at the typical funnel: total traffic, engaged traffic, click-through traffic, converted traffic, and we'll give it in familiar numbers, and everybody feels like they have an awareness of what's going on. But when you ask them what to do about it, 9 out of 10 of them won't have an idea if there's even an action involved. Just the fact that they know that it's going on. And that's where the differentiation between the can discussion versus the does discussion. And a lot of times the does discussion is very much tethered to, does it connect to get data the way that it needs to get used, compared to static data that is forensically reporting later. There are platforms that will help you say that when you download these reports from this third party that we can't connect to, they won't allow us. But if you pull these reports down and put it in this location we tell you to, we'll take that data and compare it to all these other things of data, and we'll tell you the data as it relates to each of them. That's forensic. You're looking backwards. You're looking at the ghosts of what happened to where you are now. And forensically, you can look back and say, wow, we probably should have done something 2 weeks ago about that, but we didn't know about it 2 weeks ago. We know about it today. So we can only fix it today. So whatever loss happened in the past 2 weeks, we just have to eat that. That's where a lot of this can versus does discussion begin to show this chasm of difference. Is it can do that, but does it actually do it? Does it actually provide what you need for what you think it can do? And that goes to, like I said, asking the deeper questions as to showing what it can do connected to what it does do with the platforms that you actually use, with the data in a format that allows you to understand the insights that you need to actually use what the data is telling you. And it's always an uncomfortable conversation, because the one part about the developers is that they built that to do these things. I'm using the word do. The reality is they're not allowed. Larger companies, as I said, either flat out tell them no, or provide such a high threshold financially for them to get in that it's counterproductive, because either they pay the cost to have that happen for you, or they're going to ask you to pay the cost for it to happen for you. At which point you've paid their way for another client to have an easier stretch of it. Say, for instance, you pay the connection fee of $30,000 or $40,000, or whatever the amount would be, to connect your large-scale tech stack system that they need to connect to their systems to do what they say it can do. And now that they have that accessibility function, it's either free or less than what you paid for them to do it to their next client. That's why sometimes you kind of wait for the first and the second to go through. One, does it prove to be as valuable as what's made you interested in the platform? Two, does it do all the things that got you interested in the platform to do with? And three, does it actually function with your platform in such a way that the issues do not prove counterproductive to the value that the software integration works for? These are the differences between can and does. So again, can and does The Chasm makes the difference. There's no, I wouldn't say there's more. There are conferences always each month, and there's going to be lots of fun ones starting very soon, primarily after spring, because that's usually higher transient demand, and nobody wants to go to conferences when they have better transient sales. But we're going to come across more. We'll have more of a discussion about particulars. We're going to start talking a little bit more about platform integration capabilities on this show as a crossover from our podcast, audio-only podcast, because it's a very popular discussion we have in the podcast. And it's worthy to start including that dialogue here in the show as well. So with that, for everyone that watches us live on our TV channel, which is on L Smart TVs, Google TV, Amazon TV, Apple TV, Roku TV, Samsung TV, on and on and on. Just look for Hospitality Channel. It's there. It's free. If you're watching on a simulcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, thank you for doing that. We have a lot of associations, professional hospitality associations, that let us run on their pages internationally, and also corporates that love our content and allow us to run on their pages as well. LinkedIn is strictly on my profile. They only allow one platform of entrance for videos. YouTube channels, several, again, lots of different sources for it. We do broadcast globally to 209 countries. Our radio station, Hospitality Radio, goes to 39 countries. For all the recasts of our show, you can go to hospitalitychannel.tv. Our app is Hospitality Channel. Look on Apple iOS or Google Play. You can find us there. It connects to our TV channel, actually. And there's a pay gateway for additional content on the TV channel if you're interested. And also, we have, and that's talktravel.tv is the website for the application. And we recast the show 11:30 a.m. Wednesday morning for Sydney, Australia, for our APAC friends, and London for our EU and Mideast friends. So with that, my name is Lauren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time and look forward to talking to you all next week.